Everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. I have an upsetting update to share about one of Trump's Capitol insurrectionists. It's time for an episode of Where Are They Now?
Matthew Bledsoe was arrested.
Patrick Montgomery was in court.
Jonathan Manapa will stay in federal custody.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
So the first acquittal of a January 6th defendant occurred yesterday, and you guys are not going to be surprised to hear who the judge is. Here's the deal. New Mexico resident Matthew Martin was an employee with a defense contractor that provides nuclear weapons to the federal government. The FBI, after January 6th, received a tip from someone who worked with Martin, who said that he entered the Capitol on January 6th. So that was something that was later confirmed based on Martin's cell location on that day. But in addition, Martin showed up along with his attorney. They visited the authorities in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and admitted that he entered the Capitol. Martin claimed, however, that the police opened the doors and waved him in. They allowed he and others into the building. But he did admit that he saw broken glass, and he told the authorities that later, after the attack, he realized how bad it had actually been. So Martin provided the police with his photos and his videos that he took that day, including a selfie where Martin was seen wearing a face mask that said Trump on it. Upon reviewing CCTV footage, the FBI also found surveillance footage of Martin inside the Capitol. So he was clearly there. Everybody knew he was there. He admitted he was there. But possibly the most damning evidence against him and what his intention was a text message that he sent to his then supervisor. So the supervisor reached out to him. He texted Martin on, I believe it was that evening on January 6th, and said, quote, "You can't overrun the Capitol building." So Martin replied sarcastically, quote, "Actually, you can, rather easily, I might add. Not as much security as you might think. Our numbers were freaking huge. They were not prepared." So Martin rightfully lost his job with this defense contractor. He lost his top secret security clearance. But because he didn't commit any acts of violence, he didn't vandalize anything that day, he was arrested on April 22nd, and he was charged with only the 4 common misdemeanors: entering a restricted building or grounds, 2 counts of disorderly conduct, and 1 count of parading or demonstrating in a Capitol building. Well, Martin chose not to take a plea deal. Instead, he opted for a bench trial, which means that there's no jury. The judge is the final judge and jury. In total, Martin was facing up to 3 years in prison, although most judges don't impose consecutive prison terms for each offense. They're typically served concurrently, which meant that in reality, Martin could have gone to prison for up to a year for the most serious of the misdemeanors if he was found guilty. In court, Martin testified on his own behalf, and he called January 6th, quote, "a magical day in many ways." He also used the ignorance defense. Basically, he claimed he had no idea what the down fences meant, what their significance was. And, he just wasn't aware that people weren't allowed on the Capitol steps. So the prosecutor said, no, we're not buying this. They played video, Martin's video. Actually, they played his own video that he recorded that day for the judge. And it showed that Martin, when he entered the building, the alarms were blasting. Clearly a sign you're not supposed to be in there, right? In another video, it showed officers trying to clear the Capitol building. They're actively trying to get people out. This is in his video. It also showed officers who were pulling a rioter down off of a ledge because he was up there trying to break a Capitol window. He was punching it and kicking it, and they said hitting it with a pole. So he knew that what was going on was not good. He knew there was vandalism going on. He knew that officers were trying to get people out. Unfortunately, U.S. District Judge Trevor McFadden presided over this case. You guys know how I feel about this guy. He is a January 6th sympathizer. He was looking for any and all reasons to let this guy off the hook. I guarantee it. All he needed was just a little push. And that's exactly what he did. McFadden acquitted Martin on all charges. So in court, the judge said, quote, "Count one is a close call, but under our system of justice, close calls go to the defendant." Now, count one, as I mentioned earlier, is entering a restricted building or grounds. The fact that the judge allowed that charge to be dismissed, that he refused to hold him accountable for that, is the biggest joke. Like I said, he was obviously in the building, and he was obviously not allowed to be in the building. Now, Martin had tried to argue that, like I said, that the cop had waved him inside. Judge McFadden, however, looked at the video and he didn't allow that argument. He said that the video evidence was inconclusive. And the judge confirmed that the police guarding the doors were greatly outnumbered. And he said that they, quote, acted reasonably and responsibly. However, where I think the prosecutor failed in this case was not calling those officers to testify about how they felt, why they didn't take action to stop the flow of the mob, because Judge McFadden noted that they didn't testify. He actually mentioned that. I believe that that could have made a difference in this case, at least on count one, because McFadden said, quote, "At the time the defendant was on the scene, officers were standing beside the doors to let people pass. People were streaming in and the officers made no attempt to stop people at the door. I do find the defendant reasonably believed the officers allowed him into the Capitol." Again, this is a Trump-appointed judge. He's a partisan hack. But it's possible, it's very possible, if he had heard directly from the officers about how they feared for their own safety and, how they believed that the intelligence community let them down by failing to report the threats ahead of time, which would have provided them with adequate backup. It's possible, maybe, just maybe, the judge wouldn't have been so quick to let that charge slide. I don't know. As for counts 2, 3, and 4, which are the disorderly conduct in a Capitol, disorderly conduct in a restricted building, and then the parading or demonstrating in a Capitol, McFadden gave Martin a complete pass. He said, quote, "No reasonable juror could find those actions to be disorderly. I don't find his mere presence in a crowd inside the Capitol to be disorderly." McFadden also noted the fact that Martin was waiting in line. He was quiet when he entered the building. He didn't wave his flag around while he was inside. And the judge said that Martin was, quote, "about as minimal and nonviolent a protester could be in the Capitol." So he admits that he was a protester. He calls him a protester. And it's clear that this guy did enter the Capitol, but he still refused to even convict him on the parading charge. This is why I keep saying this judge has to go. He's so blatantly partisan. It is almost laughable at this point. If this wasn't such a serious issue, it would be laughable how obvious this guy is. It's unbelievable, guys. So, and here's what really concerns me is how this is going to affect all other cases. How this judgment may affect other defendants' decisions on whether or not to take a plea deal, whether or not to push for a bench trial or a jury trial. I mean, if I were a January 6th defendant and I had this judge, I would say, no plea deal. I'm going to trial. I want a bench trial. Because this guy is a hack. This guy is a sympathizer who's going to look for any reason to let it slide and let you walk with total impunity. It's sickening. This guy has no business being a judge. He is not taking into consideration whatsoever the fact that this man, Matthew Martin, but for his presence at the Capitol and everyone else like him, the hundreds of people like him, who, yeah, maybe didn't yell at cops, maybe didn't get violent, maybe didn't vandalize anything, didn't force their way in. They walked in after the doors were open, but for their presence, those officers who were guarding them, who were keeping an eye on them like toddlers in a preschool, would have been able to go and help their fellow officers who were being beaten and tased and punched and kicked. And but for all of these people, even the ones who weren't violent, the people who work in that building would not have been terrorized that day. They would not be suffering from PTSD from not knowing if they were going to make it home that night, for fear of being dragged out and murdered or raped and murdered. This judge has not considered any of that. He doesn't give a damn. It's clear. This judge is a disgrace. He has to go. If I hear any more, guys, I'll let you know. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care. I'll talk with you soon.